The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. Welcome to Pediatric Perspectives, where we are looking at children's health perspectives and challenges from a different one. Different perspective, we include critical thinking, and we're not afraid to give you the honest truth. My guest today is a friend, and what an amazing woman, Cathy Meehan. Thank you, Cathy, for joining us today.
Well, hello, Dr. Paul Thomas. So great to be here.
So I just want to give full disclosure to our viewers. I have been on the Mindset Kids Advisory Board, but what we're here to do is just explore some really, really important topics in pediatrics. But before we do that, I was just curious, Cathy, if you could share sort of what inspired you, what got you into wanting to take care of kids and wanting to help children?
Well, okay, I'm not going to be here for 3 days, just 3 minutes. So, it's been really an interesting journey. My late husband, Jim Meehan, we were college sweethearts. And, I graduated first, started in the pharmaceutical industry. And while Jim was going to med school and then residency, and we just started having babies, and we had a total of 5 children together. And, throughout our history, and at that time, we were vaccinating because they were safe and effective. That's really what Jim knew from med school. And then all of these little hints throughout our years, whether it was, retinal hemorrhaging that he would see in children because he was an ophthalmology resident, little vascular bleeding behind the eye, or our first grandchild was born and we had issues at the hospital because we chose not to vaccinate, or my daughter chose not to vaccinate, and just the bullying from the pediatrician's office. And then Vaxxed came out, which I'm sure many of you viewers have seen the documentary Vaxxed. And after that, that really changed Jim's perspective and gave him this determination that we're going to have to save the babies. And of course, being his wife, I was alongside that journey. And it really became this passion for Jim and myself to make sure that we were informing parents of informed consent, which is risk, benefits, and alternatives. And that led to not only childhood vaccines, but then after COVID came, then that was against masking and also the informed consent of the COVID vaccine. And along the way in the route, we met you, Dr. Thomas. And it was very interesting because we kept wondering, when are people going to start really looking deep into the childhood vaccinations? And it was just one of Jim's, baby projects was to find an alternative and how do we empower parents. And then sadly, Jim passed away last year from cancer, which I always tell everybody that once we've, helped expose the corruption in the childhood vaccines, then I'm coming after the insurance and the cancer industry because it is also corrupt. But really, the passion comes from the passion that my husband had. And every day I wake up and I ask God to direct my feet, to lead me in the direction and give me wisdom and leadership and how we can be a vessel of healing and getting out informed consent. So my passion comes from my husband's passion.
Oh, that's beautiful. I know you well. I knew Jim well. We got to be close. And you are a powerhouse. You are absolutely so incredible in how you move forward in this mission that you have. So I want to thank you for that, because here's the thing. If you're watching this and you have kids, have you ever wondered do you actually need to go to the pediatrician, especially if you've made the decision you don't want to vaccinate, or even if you're just not sure about vaccines? The experience that almost everyone in this country has going to a pediatrician with a new baby or a young child is a lot of pressure at those well child visits, right? So I'm wondering, Give us I think you've done some research. What is the trend in the number of pediatricians over the years in our country? I'm curious what you found out.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting as we have social media and we have alternative forms of getting the news. It's not just the three channels on the mainstream media. And one of the things that I just want to point out, I'm sure everybody has seen a meme going around that says, the most dangerous place to take your child is the pediatrician's office. I just want to say, I am not against pediatricians at all. In fact, our dear Dr. Paul Thomas is a pediatrician, and there are many great pediatricians out there, and those are the ones that are the critical thinkers. But we have, I think, an excess of pediatricians. And there's several reasons why we have too many pediatricians. And I also want to go back to the disclaimer that if there is an emergency situation where you need to take your child to an emergency center or to the pediatrician, by all means, please go there. But by the end of this, I think that you'll see that there's some other things that we can do to help parents actually help shape their own child's health without having to go to the pediatrician. So, but going back, let's talk about the population of pediatrics. And that population, I'm saying from ages 0 to 17. And I kind of went back in numbers from 1990 to 2020. And the population growth just from pediatrics went from 64 million to 73 million, which is a lot, but that's about a 14% growth. So you would imagine with a growth in pediatrics in children, there would definitely be a need for more pediatricians. But if you look at the number of pediatricians, we went from 25,000 pediatricians to over 60,000, which
Wow.
is 140% increase. Now, that's just like your general pediatricians. I found a number that was over 150,000 pediatric professionals, and that would also include MDs, DOs, subspecialists, physician extenders like a PA or an NP. So you can see that this area of pediatrics has just like skyrocketed far beyond the population growth of pediatrics. But the interesting thing is you would think that with all of these pediatricians and the growth of our children, that maybe our kids would be getting healthier. Well, they're not. In fact, chronic disease growth from 1990, we would find about 12% of the population in pediatrics had chronic health issues. And in 2020, we are topping over 30%.
And in obesity, you're over 50%. Yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
This is really big information. We know, we've known this for decades, that the more providers you have in an area, the more procedures will happen of whoever's there. So in my career in Portland, Oregon, we had a neurosurgeon who joined the community. We did not have a pediatric neurosurgeon before, or maybe there was one before this woman came. And after her arrival, there was a massive, massive increase in surgical procedures that were happening, to the point where it was like everything was it just made no sense at all. Well, what do pediatricians do? By the way, I'm retired, full disclosure. So anything I say, it's not to diagnose or treat. It's just sharing information. Like, think of me as Professor Dr. Paul, not as your physician. We need an alternative to a broken system, right, Cathy? And that's what Mindset Kids, that's what your organization has brought to the table. And we're going to get into that some, because the system out there, your standard pediatrician, that system is failing our kids.
Right.
As you pointed out, our kids are sicker than ever before, and yet pediatricians are just going on business as usual.
Yeah, business. That was the word. You said business. It is a business for pediatricians. I mean, granted, we all need to make a living. I mean, I totally understand that. We have a practice, an adult practice, a pediatric practice. We all need to make a living. But you have to look at this. So some of the, the data that I pull shows that this growth in the pediatricians, one is because of expanded vaccine schedule. So because we have more well baby visits, we have more doses, then obviously you're going to have more pediatricians because you have more pediatric children coming into the office. Also, insurance reimbursement and incentives. So whenever you are reimbursing for these, it is a moneymaker business for physicians to give vaccinations, for one. The other thing on here, a growth in pediatricians, is because of public health policy. Well, that public health policy is because you have to understand, we have the CDC, and the American Academy, of Pediatricians, they are all promoting services like vaccinations to increase your business, which, and this thing is kind of up for debate, because I think there are a lot of us out there that think that the more you vaccinate, the more unhealthy your children are going to be. Therefore, the more office visits you're going to have, the higher percentage of children on pharmaceuticals you are going to have. And now that is a debate, isn't it, Dr. Paul Thomas?
No debate on my, of course it's a debate. However, it doesn't need to be a debate anymore. My own data that we published showing the data for vaxxed compared to unvaxxed children, it was so conclusive, so powerful. The more you vaccinate, the more chronic disease you have. More autism, developmental delays, learning disabilities. So all the neurodevelopmental things are increased. And we're talking 400 to 500%, 4 to 5 times more in the vaccinated. But it's not just the developmental issues. It's all the allergies, asthma, eczema conditions, which are chronic and very debilitating and trigger a lot of office visits. Those are also massively increased in the vaccinated. And then the shocker was infections. Parents, you think you're going to the pediatrician to vaccinate so you can prevent infections. The highly vaccinated, or even the variably vaccinated, are getting way more infections of all kinds: ears, sinus, eyes, nose, throat, skin, intestinal infections, all infections combined, massively increased in the vaccinated, significantly decreased in the unvaxxed. So what are your thoughts about well child visits and what might be a better model? I think Mindset Kids is definitely a model to consider. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree that there has to be some kind of a shift, because we know that the pediatric system as it currently is broken. I mean, if it wasn't broken, then we would see the healthiest population of children, and that, everyday chronic disease is decreasing, but we're not seeing that. So, and I go back to that meme about, the most dangerous place for a child or a healthy child is in a pediatrician's office. And that's really one of the things that we always focus on, is being the scientist of your own health. And that goes for parents being the scientist of their children's health also, and which also correlates into informed consent. If every parent has the right to informed consent, and I just want to define that as it's risks, benefits, and alternatives. And that means whether it's for a vaccination, the doctor should be giving you risk, benefits, and alternatives. And also the same thing for if you caught the illness. Let's say you caught measles. What are the risks, benefits, and alternatives? So you've got to look at all of that, and then the parent needs to be able to make that informed decision. Now, I want to go back and just say that, Jim and I had 5 kids. And during that time, our mindset was vaccines are safe and effective. And so all 5 of our children got pretty much all of the childhood vaccines. We stopped vaccinating before they were of age for HPV. Thank goodness that we didn't do that one. But we look back at our kids, and they had eczema, pneumonia, asthma. I remember little Tori, she would scratch her legs, and there would be blood on her sheets in the morning because she would just scratch all night. And then Macy didn't even talk until she was 3 years old. And, it was, the pediatrician was like, oh, that's normal. Well, you know what? It is not normal for your child to not speak until after 3 years old. Now, it might be common because they have this practice full of vaccinated children, and a lot of them have, a speech delay or something like that. But that is not normal. And I just want to go back to that because I didn't get informed consent. Now, the CDC has a vaccination info guide that it's like a piece of paper that they will hand a parent, but that does not go in depth for risks associated with vaccinations. And not only that, but it's like, where's the package insert? And had anyone even, mentioned to me like, hey, Cathy, do you know what's in a vaccine or what you were injecting into your child? I would have looked it up, but I never had that seed planted. So I really want people to know that even though it might be uncomfortable to address someone or, just even mention vaccinations, just do it. Just do it. I just think that is our duty. Our purpose is to just leave a little bit of a seed for everyone to just start looking at it. And I go back to even Jim in med school. He wasn't told what was in a vaccination. During med school, they are taught safe and effective and to memorize the CDC vaccination chart. So had he known what was actually in a vaccination during med school, because he was a critical thinker, he would have been like, yo, wait a minute. Why are we injecting this into our children? So It just goes back to that risk, benefits, and alternatives. Yeah.
So if I'm a parent and I've either been kicked out of my pediatric practice because I no longer want to follow the CDC schedule, or I just want somewhere to go where I can make my own decisions, where I can get informed.
Yeah.
And so many times there is no such person in my town. I mean, people are really having a hard time finding a practice that will really, truly honor parents' wishes, will really give the full informed consent. I know enough about Mindset Kids to know that this is a legitimate alternative, but how does it work? How do you actually empower parents, and can you help them if they're having a hard time finding a place to go?
Yes, absolutely. And so, really what we designed was an alternative to really empower parents, because we believe that if you are given just the right amount of knowledge, that you can take care of a lot of like non-emergent care for your children. And I'm talking about like fevers and coughs and colds and bruises and cuts and scrapes. It's those things that at one time were passed down from our grandmothers to our mothers. And then I always say, like, I mean, Paul, what did your great grandma do when somebody had a fever in your family?
Well, I grew up a missionary kid in Zimbabwe, Rhodesia at the time, and we were very rural. There were no clinics or hospitals or anything like that. So my mom would basically use her wisdom. She was trained as a nurse, so she had some medical background, but it was that passed on knowledge. I mean, I think I got 3 vaccines as a kid, and that was all World Health Organization coming through Africa and zapping us with smallpox and I don't know what else. But no, there is natural healing wisdom that we've lost touch with, right? And so I think what Mindset Kids does is it fills in the gap for what we've lost there.
Exactly.
And
so
explain how you do that, though.
What we started with was a resource. We want to be a resource for parents, and we started with a natural health guide. So when you go to the natural health guide, it is full of common non-emergent ailments, like I said, cuts and scrapes and sunburns and insect bites and constipation and ear infections and all those things. And each chapter will give parents a list of common natural remedies, holistic alternatives, and then it'll give a little section on when to call the doctor. Because as a parent, we always have in the back of our mind, especially when we have our first children, it's like, okay, am I doing enough? Is this good? So what we provide is we provide the natural remedies or the information on it. And then also when you need to call a doctor, then you can contact Mindset Kids and we will schedule a consultation with a provider so that you've got that extra backup. And I'll say, there's been instances where the doctor will say, well, I think little Susie probably needs to go to the ER for that. And so then you can take little Susie to the ER for that. But it's kind of that backup, because we also have to realize that a lot of people are getting fired from pediatricians' offices because they're not following the protocols or anything like that. So we have designed, number one, a little box. It's real cute. It's for your home kit. It looks like this, a little box. And inside that box, we give you the tools to help monitor your child's health. And that's anything from a thermometer to a pulse ox, to this cool little device. It's actually an otoscope that connects to your phone, and you can take pictures or video of the inside of your child's ear, their nose, their throat, or if they have any lesions, you can take pictures and send those over, and plus the health guide. And like I said, we just want to give you this toolkit, and so that you can care for your child's ailments. We are available in all 50 states. We also have a state-by-state guide so that we can help connect you with chiropractors and holistic dentists and just other people that are, in this movement of bringing up our children in a more natural, holistic way. So that's the basics for Mindset Kids.
Wow. I have to tell a story here. I was, towards the end of my practice, we had the COVID happen. But prior to that, every winter in pediatrics, there's the respiratory season, and kids are getting RSV and flu and parainfluenza and rarely pertussis, but there's a lot of respiratory illness out there. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the tools is the pulse ox, which you have in your kit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I remember pulling that out because I would do that often just to make sure if you've got a child who's struggling to breathe or coughing a lot, it's nice to know where's their oxygen. I mean, 97 to 100 is normal. Above 92 or 3 is fine. You get down into the low 90s, or definitely if you're into the 80s for a pulse ox for a child, they're in trouble.
Right.
It's good to know that. So we're doing this with this family, and they were from Italy. And I'll never forget, the mom says, well, no respectful family in Italy would live without a pulse ox in their home. And I thought, wow, that's a good statement. Every family needs a pulse ox. You've gone a step more because it just helps to be able to see what's going on in the ears, what's going on in the throat, and if there's anything else to see. So now on a telehealth visit, you have everything you need to make a really well informed assessment, if you will. You've got providers who are going to look at all this information and guide these families.
If anybody's a pediatrician out there and they want to, work with us, I do need more pediatricians that are like-minded and people that are, in the health industry for that. So anybody can reach out to me for that. I would appreciate that.
I bet you do. After the show, you're probably going to need a lot more pediatricians. How do people reach you? How do they find Mindset Kids?
Yeah, so they can go to meehanmd.com, and the link is on the front page. Or, of course, there's mindset-kids.com. And my email's on both of those if people want to reach out. And that's where they can get all their information.
Wonderful. I think a lot of us who've lived through COVID realize the medical system is broken. Mm-hmm. The fact that the ACIP committee of the CDC put the COVID shot on the childhood vaccine schedule. I mean, thankfully, RFK Jr. in their recent meeting, they made a change that it's no longer recommended. However, it was not removed from the schedule.
Right.
It was still left there to be up to the doctor and the parent. Well, if you're seeing a traditional pediatrician who is indoctrinated and brainwashed by the system, and benefits extremely from the financial benefits of vaccinating, you're probably going to get encouraged to give this extremely dangerous shot. It's not even a vaccine. So it's time for a new model. The old system is broken. And as you put it, how do you stop feeding the beast?
Yeah, exactly.
Broken pediatric model. Well, Mindset Kids is a simple way to do that.
Yeah. You've got to take your kids out of the pediatrician's office. We've got to do that. I mean, it's just, they are not safe going there. There are some very great critical thinking pediatricians that are not going to take advantage of the children. Absolutely. I know. But I do believe that the scale is tipped on the side of the pediatricians that are, they're not critical thinkers. I keep going back to that because they're smart, but they don't get it. They just don't get it. There's that financial bias that it's really hard to present information to somebody who is, they're making a living off of vaccinations. I mean, it's anywhere from, up to $40,000 a year that some of these insurance companies, that's the P4P, pay for performance. So Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna, they are all doing it. They're providing incentives to get your pediatric practice vaccinated. And if they don't vaccinate a certain percentage, they can get financially penalized. I mean, by withholding a bonus or even having to pay back some money. So
you lose contracts.
It's a business. At that point, it is a business. Pediatricians aren't forced to vaccinate, but missing these metrics can mean missing out on significant bonuses.
Yeah.
So that tells you everything right there.
I published a paper. What I did was I took a whole month of super bills, which is where we document everything we do per visit. And then we multiplied that by 12. And we looked at the vaccines that were recommended according to the CDC schedule that child needed, and the money we lost just on the admin fee. So, I mean, there are multiple ways that you just mentioned, some of them, Cathy, that pediatricians make money on vaccines, the bonuses and all that stuff. But there's just an admin fee. A thank you for giving the vaccine, basically. My practice, which was billing a gross billing of $3 million, I had 30 some employees. I had 10 providers. We were a busy hopping clinic. We lost over $1 million in just the admin fee. Wow. Can you imagine? No wonder we couldn't make ends meet. You have to vaccinate if you're a pediatric practice that's providing just the full care. And that's the only model out there. So they have to vaccinate or they will have to shut their doors because the money won't pencil out. Yeah. So here's an alternative. Mindset Kids. Cathy, I want you to have the last word. Whatever's on your heart to talk to the viewers who maybe are parents who are struggling with, what do I do? I'm not content with the pediatrician. I've been kicked out. I need an alternative, or whatever's on your heart to share with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity. Mindset Kids was designed to put the power back in the parents' hands because you guys, know your child best. And we really just want to be there, be alongside you, support you, and then also give you the pediatrics, a backup for when you need more information, or let's just say that cough's not going away. If the cough's not going away, call a pediatrician and we'll help get you handled. But we are designed for you guys. And I just, I appreciate this opportunity. And if there's other people that, that could benefit from this, just please share Mindset Kids with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. I also want to tell you folks that if you need another opinion about something, you're also welcome to come to Kids First Forever. That's where I coach. Thank you, Cathy, for everything you're doing to help kids get the kind of care they need. And I know it's phenomenal because I know your entire team and you are blessing the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this show and I look forward to seeing you next week. You can also get my new book, Facts. Anywhere books are sold. It's a thorough discussion of all the vaccine issues. You can consider it your informed consent manual and much more. We'll see you next week.
My name is Janet Leviton, and I am a holistic pediatrician in the Cleveland, Ohio area.
What exactly is a holistic pediatrician? What does that mean?
Well, as a holistic pediatrician, I am always trying to look for the natural solutions to help people get healthy and stay healthy. So that has to do with what we eat, how we carry out our pregnancy as an expectant mother, how we give birth, how we handle our newborn, and then when illnesses and ailments do come into the lives of our children, which is inevitable into every life, something will come. How are we handling that? Are we using pharmaceuticals, drugs, toxins, or are we attempting to use homeopathy, herbs, natural methods?
So some people might say, oh, well, she's a holistic paediatrician. She's not a proper paediatrician. Could you explain your qualifications and how you got the title of paediatrician?
Well, I am a proper pediatrician because I went to medical school at the George Washington University, graduating in 1982. And then I did a pediatric internship and residency at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. That ended in 1986. And I became board certified as a pediatrician, and so I have all of the conventional training and all of that expertise, but I have added on extra training. My main expertise is in homeopathy, which I love because it's an awesome treatment modality that's very safe, easy to administer to children, assists the body in healing its own self, so it's great for chronic and acute health problems.
When you went to medical school, so you trained as just like anyone else, as a normal white coat pediatrician to start with. What made you go the holistic way? What did you see, or what on earth? Because I presume you started out to become a pediatrician.
Well, I'm trying to write a memoir, and I'll hopefully someday finish it. But going all the way back, I really can say that I was following someone else's dream when I went to medical school. I was young. I didn't really know what I was doing in life. My father had been a doctor. I wasn't sure what my direction was. So I ended up going to medical school without really knowing what I was getting into. And I discovered pretty soon after I was in there that I didn't really align with everything that I was learning. And things came to a crisis point a couple years into that training, and I had to make a decision whether I was going to leave the field or whether I was going to figure out how to make it work for me and make it my own. So I actually took a year off of school in the middle to do that soul searching and do some research into different types of alternatives that were out there. I decided to go back to the training and finish that up, but with a commitment that I would do something more natural, alternative, holistic, whatever you want to call it.
All right, let's talk about the COVID thing and what we're about to see. We're already hearing reports of RSV and all the scaremongering starting to happen. Your baby's going to die if you don't get the RSV vaccine, or while you're pregnant, and all that kind of nonsense. Let's talk first of all about COVID. What did you see as a pediatrician during COVID?
Well, when they first announced COVID, the first thought I had was, oh, here we go, another scam. They tried it with MERS, and they tried it with SARS and Ebola and Zika. I'm like, this is not going to catch on. But somehow they got their formula correct, and they got it to catch on. But the whole time I was thinking, this is a scam. I mean, people were sick, people are sick, but I don't really think that it's a viral illness that's causing this. I mean, the death rates around the world were the same as they had been in previous years, the average of previous years, until they introduced the vaccine, and that's when we've had all of these excess deaths going on, sudden deaths, teenagers, athletes just dropping dead, entertainers, newscasters, we've all seen that even on the conventional media. So what is making people sick? I mean, they were introducing 5G. I think that's a big player. I have some very holistic people in my practice, eating correctly, breastfeeding, doing all the right things. They took a trip to Chicago, which is very technological, that place, and they stayed in a home of friends that's a smart home, like all of the appliances and the light switches are connecting to the internet. Not to mention there were fragrances and toxic laundry products and that type of thing in this home. They came back, these two little children were sick as a dog. They were having ear infections, sinus infections, mucus, ruptured eardrums, coughs, fevers. And these are unvaccinated people using no conventional meds. So it took a lot. We had to use all types of supplements and homeopathic remedies, repeated appointments to help these children get healthy again. It was like a journey. I got them using EMF protectors. I was telling you before that I wear this. I feel very different when I wear it because I believe that electromagnetic fields are really affecting people negatively.
Also hearing from parents who are not vaccinating their children, black mold being found in the house. What do you know about that?
Mold is very toxic, and mold, from what I have heard, will proliferate in the presence of electromagnetic fields because it feels threatened, like the the EMF is going to kill the mold, so the mold is going to proliferate to kind of try to defend itself and protect itself. I mean, I'm pretty old now. Should I say how old I'm going to be next
Sure,
month?
if you want to.
I'm going to be 70 next month. So I've been, living for, a long time. And I never used to smell mold in places. I call myself the beagle because I smell everything, especially things I don't like to smell, like, laundry products and fragrances. I smell it all. And I never used to smell mold, maybe just occasionally. Now I smell mold in so many places that I go. And I believe it's in part because of these EMFs. So mold, we all have different types of bacteria in our body. Maybe bacteria and parasites could be associated with Lyme or other tick-borne infections. But when you get all types of influences coming together within one person, the Lyme pathogens, the mold, the EMFs, glyphosate, I cannot overstate the toxicity of glyphosate, also known as Roundup, which is very insidious because you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it, but wow, is it making people sick? And there's an explanation for why it's associated with almost any illness that you can think of.
So your message must be eat organic.
Yes. I mean, food is a nightmare. Listen, if you want to avoid vaccines, up to this point, that's not that hard. It's just don't go to the places where they're giving vaccines or just, say no. That's an episodic event that's pretty easy to avoid. If you want to avoid unhealthy food, good luck, because you are just surrounded by a sea of unhealthy food. And you're within your own home, maybe you can try to do well, but you step out your door and people are offering your kids, the pizza and the mac and cheese and the lollipops and whatever else it is. That's very difficult.
Going forward, we're going to go into winter, and there's going to be lots of fear-mongering, as we just talked about, and RSV is going to be huge. Your baby's going to die. Get your baby the COVID shot, the flu shot, the 6 months and above. What is, as a pediatrician, what is your message to parents?
Well, there's many different messages, but one of the messages I just got this book, and I'll just hold it up because I'm looking forward to reading it. And I'm pretty sure I know what the book says, which is almost no matter, did you get a picture of the book? Yeah. Almost no matter how we look at it, the vaccinated children are the unhealthy ones, and the unvaccinated children, did I say that right? The vaccinated children are the unhealthy ones, and the unvaccinated children are the healthy ones. I'm not a bona fide scientist, I'm a clinician, but I see in my office the kids who come in who are unvaccinated are the healthy ones. They are not having chronic illnesses and chronic conditions. Yes, they may get an acute ailment here and there, but we give them some herbs, some homeopathy, they're going to bounce back and they're going to carry on. These unvaccinated kids with, asthma, eczema, allergies, autoimmune conditions, autism, developmental problems. It's just so sad, and people still don't seem to know. I mean, many people do know, but many people just don't know about the toxicity of vaccines. I learned about this many years ago, back in the 1980s, when, I might have talked to you about this before, but I saw early in my training 3 babies die of SIDS, so-called SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, within 24 hours of being vaccinated. So it was like, vaccinated 2 p.m. and then dead at 2 a.m. And the first time I saw that happen, I was in my residency, and obviously I didn't know everything back then that I know now because more and more information has come out. But something just went inside my heart and mind, and I knew that the vaccine had something to do with it. So when I had my son a couple of years later, I didn't vaccinate him, and this is, almost 39 years ago. I knew back then that I didn't want to vaccinate him. I also didn't want him to have a very painful procedure when he was born because I had seen how that was done. Am I allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, circumcision, when I was in my training, they were doing circumcisions on the babies in the nursery, and they're like, hey, come on in this room and watch us do it a couple times, then you can do it to a baby. So they, strap the baby down in 4-point restraints and do what I call genital cutting with no anesthesia. And then they wanted me to do it, and I said, no, I'm not going to do it. First of all, I didn't think I could do it properly after just, watching it a couple times. And then I was thinking in my mind, well, even if I could do it, why would I want to do it? And I said, listen, I'm going out of this room, and I'm not coming back in, and I'm not doing it. I don't know why I was different than the other doctors, but I just was. So then when I had my son a couple years later, I said, we're not doing it, no discussion, we're just not doing that to him. Because you got to think about that from the little baby's perspective. You know, he's just emerged from the womb, he's trying to breathe, he's looking at the lights, he's looking around, he's trying to figure out, can I start to build trust with somebody? I have to try to latch to the breast, and you're strapping him in 4-point restraints and doing this procedure. Maybe you, as the parent, think you know why you're doing it, but what in the baby's consciousness, you could be trying to kill him. He has no idea what's going on, except that something very traumatizing and painful is happening. I mean, I think that's another part of why there's so much trauma, internalized trauma in our society. Just think of our poor males and what's being done to them on day one of life. I mean, a study was done where they recorded some of the brain waves of babies before a circumcision and then afterwards, and there were changes in the emotional and higher learning centers of the brain that did not revert back to prior to the procedure. So this is not right. This is not right. Not to mention you need a vitamin K shot to have it done in the hospital because that participates in blood clotting. So yeah, I gave a talk a while ago about they're trying to make you think all along that something is wrong with you and something is wrong with your baby. Like you're pregnant, they're making you take a test to check for genetic problems. They're telling you you could be diabetic, you have to take this glucose tolerance test where you drink this jug of, sugary water. Of course, that's going to make anybody's blood sugar be abnormal. They want to tell you there's something wrong, you have diabetes, your baby could have a malformation, you need to take Tdap shots because you could pass pertussis on to your baby, when meantime, we know from research that people who take acellular pertussis vaccines have a lifetime increased susceptibility to having pertussis, so it actually has negative effectiveness. They want your baby's born, there's something wrong with his genitals, we need to do cutting. He's not going to blood clot, we need to give him a vitamin K shot. Could get hepatitis B next month, so we have to give him a hepatitis B vaccine. It's like an internalized dialogue that there is something wrong with you, and it starts from within the womb. So it's an uphill battle for people to combat this and work against this. So I am always talking to people about you have the power, you know what to do, you can use natural methods, you are the master of health. And then if you do need help, you can come to somebody like me who's going to, number one, not be working under the dictates of what insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies tell me to do. I'm going to be trying to help you in the best ways that I know fit. I'm going to be suggesting natural methods, supplements, herbs, vitamins, homeopathics, lifestyle changes. So
how can people follow you? They want to learn out more about what you're doing.
How can people follow me? Well, I work at a place called Hyper Health Wellness Center in Medina, Ohio. We do have a website. It's hyperhealthwc.com. I will say that I don't do a lot of blogging and content because I just don't have time, or maybe I don't have the incentive to
Well,
do
you're
it.
busy looking after babies, as
I'm
pediatricians
looking
should
after
be.
babies, yeah. I am in the middle of writing a book. It's going to be called something like Getting Healthy and Staying Healthy with Dr. Janet's Natural Alternatives, because I realize I give a lot of advice to people and I'm always sort of repeating some of the same things, and I thought, let me start writing some of this out and I can give some handouts. And I started a chapter on how to care for your skin, because your skin is your biggest organ and it's an organ of detoxification. And I'm like, I have one chapter here, let me just start adding chapters on vaccines, nutrition, pregnancy, childbirth, how to care for your newborn, how we think, developing your intuition, which is very important. So many parents have told me, I didn't want to give those vaccines, but they twisted my arm and they scared me. No, you stick to your intuition. You can always research, you can always do that vaccine down the line if you decide it's the right thing. The only reason to do it is if you think it's going to be healthy for your child. Not because someone's telling you to do it, not to travel, not to go to a school, not for your spouse, so that can be a difficult one. But And if you do think it's going to be healthy for your child, it's probably because you're just not educated properly on the topic. I mean, there's the word ignorance actually means lack of knowledge. You might be smart, but you just might be ignorant or lacking in knowledge, and you have to inform yourselves these days. You cannot take the advice of what other people are saying, including me. Research what I say and see what you think.
Thank you for doing this interview. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you for having me, Polly.